Paintbox friends, thanks for joining us again. And if it's your first time with us, we're happy to have you here. Today, my helper here in the studio, my guest artist of the day, is my dear friend Anastasia. And Anastasia's home from a college break. Tell us the name of your college, Anastasia.
I go to Illinois Institute of Technology.
Institute of Technology in Chicago, Illinois. Okay. And she's studying architecture, and she worked here with me in the studio. We became friends when she entered my studio to see if there was anything she could do to help me with, and she stayed here about 6 years, something like that, and she taught children's classes here and became friends with everybody in the studio, and we're really happy to know her and have her with us. Her family came here from the Ukraine 7 years ago or so. Yeah, so we're happy to have her with us. And our project today is the little mug of hot chocolate, and Anastasia's going to paint along with me, and we'll get you started here and see you back. Okay, so here we are at step one. We're getting ready to get started here. So I was just telling Anastasia while we were setting up that she wasn't aware that we're using water-based oil paint. So they came out with that, I think maybe 15 to 20 years ago, and the first generation of it wasn't all that great. But this, I think this kit that I send to you all, this Marie's paint, is quite nice, and so Anastasia's going to paint with it for the first time. And what we do is you just get your brush a little bit wet, because we're going to do the drawing with some thinned out paint. So we're going to thin it with water, and we're going to go over to your yellow ochre, which is that mustardy yellow color. And the first thing I'm going to do is something that we would do in a drawing class. And you all have, those of you who've painted with me for a while know that I usually mark the parameters of halfway, just a little dot on each side of the canvas. And that's going to help us kind of visually structure where to put the mug. So what I'm seeing is that coming up from the bottom, it's about a ½ an inch up or so, the bottom of that mug. And then coming over from center here, we're coming over just about 1 inch to the side of that, and maybe about 1.5 inches over this way. And then maybe 2 inches down from the top. So there's our parameters for the mug. So we're going to draw just a little bit of a curved line at the top, and then a little bit of a curved line would kind of mirror. They'd be almost like parallel lines making the same curve. And then come down and we give that mug a little bit of a round shape on the side. I think I made mine too tall. I'm going to go ahead and lower it here. And if you have a Q-tip or part of your paper towel handy, you can use it as an eraser. And then I'm going to take off the top of that mug. Got to leave room for the marshmallows. Do you all drink hot chocolate, Anastasia, at your house?
We do sometimes. My sister loves it.
I was going to say, I bet your little sister loves it. So then the handle, it's almost like a backwards S with the bottom of the S cut off. So I might have gotten a little wide on, no, I guess I started the handle, attached it to the mug and brought it down and sort of curved like that, like a little bit of a backwards S. And then all I'm going to do is maybe draw now the edge of the table that's sitting in front of the fireplace. So it's that tabletop line across there is above the halfway mark. And that's really it. We don't really, oh, I did kind of just sort of have an image of a log back there in the fire. Oh, and the 3 marshmallows. So I did one kind of oval there is the end of the big marshmallow. And then another one was kind of sitting beside it, maybe at a little bit of an angle. And then the last marshmallow is kind of sitting down inside that chocolate. It hasn't really been cold enough around here for hot chocolate. It's been really warm this winter here in Louisville. And then, like I started to say a little while ago, you could probably just kind of sketch a little bit of maybe what looks like a log back there in that fire. I don't know, maybe I needed 2. I was saying to Anastasia earlier, but we can play with that. The nice thing about oil painting is you can change things quite a lot from the beginning to the end. It's very easy to change things as you go. And then I'm just making some squiggly lines. That's gonna be our little fire lines. And we'll put the pattern in later. So I think the basic drawing is done. How'd you do, Anastasia? Of course, she did wonderful. All right, so if you all at home need to catch up, I'm gonna have a break here and you can pause your video and then we'll meet back up with you at step 2. Okay, we are back for step 2, and that's the background. So I'm going to start up at the top, and we're going to go right into that little fire area. That's going to be fun. So I'm going to say, let's make it easy. I'm going to do 4 shades for the fire. The first one, I'm just going to lay them out like 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first one, we're just going to pick up some white because that's going to be that lightest color in there. And then I'm going to pick up white again and add just a little bit of both of these yellows, just a tiny little bit of both of those yellows. And make that kind of yellowy flame color. Actually, I'm going to put a little more of that bright lemon yellow in there. Maybe a little more. I'd like it to be kind of bright. Okay, I think that's good. And then there's an orangey shade. So orange is made with red and yellow. I'm going to take just a little of that red. It's pretty strong. And about 2 or 3 times more yellow in there. And that makes a nice orange. And then the red flame, I'm going to take the bright red, that scarlet red, and I might add a little bit of this burnt sienna, that's that reddish brown. I'll move my clip here. Because it might need to tone that down a little bit. I might even add a little white in there just because it's a pretty deep color. A little more of that reddish brown. Okay, we'll use those 4 colors. All right, so are we ready? All right, I'm going to take maybe take the white. Now, for those of you who maybe this is your first lesson, I like to hold this brush back. These brushes are long, and that's so that you hold them farther back. It will keep you from putting a lot of pressure on your brush and holding it like a pencil or a marker. You want to get some pretty long brush strokes, and you also don't want to put pressure on it. That's how those brush strokes look so beautiful. So I'm gonna pick this paint up almost like I'm sweeping with a broom. Just pick it up, and then I'm gonna have to turn my brush over, and I hold my brush pretty flat, not a 90 or 45-degree angle, but pretty flat, and just start letting that paint swish around on your canvas. And see, you see how oily these paints are, Anastasia? They're really smooth. So Anastasia she came in and painted with us, and then some of the students asked if she would teach some children's classes, and so she did that, and she continued to paint and win awards at the state fair, like first place at the state fair in her age group. Oh, I have to remember to insert a picture of your painting. I think I still have a picture of it here. If I don't, I might need you to send it to me. She painted a big panda surrounded by greenery, and that's what won the fair. And she's done some wonderful murals. If you'll send me a couple pictures of those, I'll insert them in the film, okay?
Sure.
So you see, I'm just kind of making up and down little swirlies to be the little swirly strokes. And you should always feel that paint sliding and gliding underneath your brush. And this is one of those instances where it doesn't matter if those colors blend in together. They're all pretty much in the same red-orange family, red-orange-yellow family, so we can let them kind of swirl together and blend, make that flame shape. Anastasia, have you painted much in watercolor or pastels, acrylics?
I do a lot of watercolor now, since it's easier to carry around.
Right, right. You know, that's interesting you say that, because I do a lot of watercolor now. Because it's easy at home if I'm sitting in front of my fire and have my tea or something. I can just sit with it on a clipboard and look up of water. And so I ended up starting a new line of watercolors.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's going to be a new paint box edition on the website, and it's going to be my watercolor projects. But they're going to be really easy, because when you receive the box, it's going to be a box of note cards, and the drawings are already done. So you just watercolor in color it in like a coloring book, and then you can send out pretty note cards to people. I'll have to insert a little picture of the note cards. I'll show you during the break on my phone. I made a little more orange, and I just picked it up with my brush. If you all noticed, I picked up a little yellow, and I just put it into this red. I needed a little more orange, I thought, in my fire. And as my students all hear me say, get this in, brush this on. You can feel that paint sliding around. I forgot to do the log. I'm gonna put that log in there now. So like I said, you can always change your mind in oils, because we can go right over things, like go right into things. I'm gonna pick up this brown. It's the chocolate brown. And I'm gonna just kind of hint that there's a little log, and you can put it right over. If you made a mistake like I did and you've already put your reds in there, you can go right over it. It'll make it a nice soft brown. Just kind of hinting that there's a log back there maybe. And I do think I need to put another one in, like crisscross. There, just a little bit. We can come back at the end. We can change things, and that's the final step. My step 4, or sometimes there's 5 steps, but step 4 is usually the finishing up stage, where we're just touching up and making little changes. So Anastasia, did you say you have any art classes at all in your architectural program?
We had introduction to architecture class, which was just like sketching buildings.
Well, sketching, that's nice.
Yeah, but other than that, we don't.
So Anastasia says she takes her paints out around the city and sets up and paints what we call plein air style. I did put, just for some depth, I put a couple little darks back in those flames. I'm just that same brown. You can just put a couple little, and I think that's it for the fire. We'll take a quick little break so I can give the cameras a rest, and we'll finish up the tabletop next. Okay, we're still in step 2, but we're going to go into the background finish the background of the tabletop now. So I think what we're going to do is make 2 shades of brown. So I'm going to take that chocolate brown again, that's called burnt umber, and I've got some white left from my fire pile up there. Make a light brown. And I think when I was painting this, I wanted it to be a cooler color because the fire was so warm. So I'm going to cool that brown down by adding a little of this cool dark blue called ultramarine. And that will make it more of a cool gray brown. I'm going to go ahead and add some more blue. So you get a nice, the blue makes it a cooler color, and obviously you've got the warm flames in the background and the warm red cup, so I thought something in the painting needed to have a cooler temperature. So one of the things you'll learn about a lot in painting is the color has a temperature. And obviously you can see here where these reds and yellows and oranges are very warm. And you can see where I made kind of a nice cool gray. And I'm gonna make, let's see, a darker shade of that. So not as much white in the next pile. It's gonna be more like burnt umber and the blue. Chocolate brown, burnt umber, and the ultramarine dark navy blue. I like that dark color, but I don't see much difference between these two, so maybe I'll add just a little more white to that first pile. There we go. And that's gonna make our kind of our wood grain. So my brush strokes here, you know, the thing about oils, because the brush strokes have texture, unlike, you know, a watercolor where they might be just flat, because oils are so structural and they can stand up. You can see this pile here of paint standing up about 1/8 of an inch. You know, you can get it to stand up like that, 1/4 of an inch. If you see Van Gogh's paintings, he painted very thick, and you see all those brush strokes really thick. So because they have texture, they have shape, they have a direction. So that's why we did the, you know, vertical squiggly straight brush strokes to show the flames. And now I'm going to do long horizontal strokes to show kind of like this is a flat tabletop. And I'm going to just kind of alternate those colors and pick up a little white occasionally to make that wood grain effect. Anastasia, after six or so years of painting in here, we never really painted together like this. I was always teaching, or you were always teaching.
Yeah, it's very enjoyable to paint together.
Yeah,
finally.
I know. Some of these things, the paint box project, I have a guest artist most every month, and one of my students, it's the same with them. I've painted with many of them for years and years, but never painted with them. I've always been their teacher. I never get to sit down and paint with everybody. I'm filled in that little area inside the mug handle. Yeah, so I'll put in a picture of some of the murals that Anastasia has painted at a local restaurant or cafe, or did you do two? You did 2 different locations, or was it just the one location or 2?
Yeah, I did 2 different locations.
Okay.
This summer I painted at the real estate office.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm.
What was the mural of?
It was the skyline of Louisville.
Oh, well, we've got to see that too. I don't think you showed me that. And Anastasia and her family took a trip back to the Ukraine and to Russia last summer for quite a long trip, like a month or more.
Mm-hmm. A month. Mm-hmm.
And so did you do the mural before that trip or after?
Before that trip.
Before, okay. We will I'm going to reach up here to my dark brown and just start dragging some just straight brown in there. I wasn't getting much of a wood grain effect showing. Those 2 colors were so similar. Maybe I'll just make that one a little darker. Just, you know, like it's a wood grain. I don't want it to look like stripes, but you can see here where I just kind of dropped a few darker squiggles in and lighter squiggles. And then I don't want to forget, one of the things that gives us dimension and depth is a shadow. So I'm going to put light and shadow always helps. So I've got a light side to the mug here where you can see all the light's coming from this direction, and then there's a shadow on the opposite side and a shadow coming out from below the mug here on the table. And you know, students always ask, they say, why does my painting look flat? And the very first thing I'm going to say is, where are your highlights and where are your shadows? And once you get those in, you get the effect you're looking for. Okay, I'm going to say that I think I'm done there. I started to say a little while ago, another thing I tell my students, get it to where you're about 80% happy with it and keep moving. Otherwise you could stay in one area for far too long. And then when you get all the areas about 80% done, or 90, wherever you feel comfortable stopping, then we come in at that final step and fine tune. So your table looks good. Okay, everybody, we'll take a break and we'll see you back here when we're ready to paint the mug. Okay, we are ready to start the mug. And this should be pretty fun and pretty easy. The scarlet red color that we put out on our palette today, I hopefully made a note in your written tutorial and at the beginning of this video. We usually lay out that vermilion red, which is much more orangey. So this time I had on your palette layout to lay out the scarlet red. So I'm gonna make 3 shades of red for the mug. I'm gonna pick up the scarlet and put it right in the middle of what's gonna be 3 piles, because that's gonna be, this middle color is pretty much straight scarlet. The lighter color, and again I'm talking light, medium, dark, so that we have a 3-dimensional quality. The first color is gonna be the scarlet with just a little white in there. I don't want it to get too light. And then middle color is just scarlet. And the third color is scarlet with, if I can remember what I put in. Oh, scarlet red with the purple red right next to it. It's really called alizarin crimson, but you can call it purple red. And that makes a nice dark color. And another question I get quite often is questions about pattern. So what we usually say is, you know, the fabric goes in before the pattern goes on. So we're gonna put the solid mug in, and then we're gonna have fun putting that little white pattern on there. So I'm gonna start with that lightest color. Just pick it up gently with my brush, turn my brush over, keep it at low to the canvas. And I'm gonna just push that little pink color up towards the brown table, trying not to get the two to mix. You know, I paint kind of fast, and I always say at this point, when I have 2 colors getting up close to each other, go a little slower. Trying to make that little curve of the cup. And it's just about half an inch or so of that lighter pink color. And then I'm going to go into the red, just the scarlet. What do you think about the paints, Anastasia?
I enjoy them actually a lot. They feel like the regular oil paint.
They do. They really do. And that's nice to know you can take them traveling and you don't need to have any turpentine. You can't really travel with turpentine. Sometimes I'd get to Florida and try to find the nearest art store so that I could go buy turpentine if I was going to paint in oils. You know, I just have never really liked acrylics. They just dry too fast, especially if you're painting outdoors. So on vacation, these come in handy. So, but again, just because of the texture of the mug, I'm kind of making just long strokes. I'm going to go into the dark color now for this dark back side. Trying to keep creating that curve up at the top, curve of the mug. So it's looking kind of 3-dimensional, isn't it? Now, since I have this dark color on my brush, I'm going to go ahead and take it along to make that handle. I'm holding my brush up straight now and just pulling it along. So your brush has this nice chisel edge that we talk about a lot. There's so many things you can do with it, but if we use it just not using the flat side of the brush, just using the chisel end, you can do a little more drawing with the brush. So I'm kind of just drawing that handle in there. And you see, sometimes little gaps are left between where I didn't finish a log or a flame or the wood. Just don't worry about those little gaps. We'll come back and get them at the very end. We'll come back and fill all those in. Sometimes those gaps are there so that, or because I didn't want two colors to blend in together. I'm going to take a little bit of that lighter pink color and just pretend that that handle's picking up a little bit of light for a highlight. Otherwise it would look kind of flat if I just left it. You know, I may have picked up a little more brown and blue, a little darker, even a little darker to put a kind of a dark shadow, darker even shadow on that. Maybe I'll just go right into that blue and brown again and just pull it. There. So like I said, we go back and fill those gaps in later, but this little gap right here is bothering me. So I'm gonna go ahead. This is where, I love this brush because if I need to have a little brush, and let's say this is one of your first projects and you haven't received other shaped brushes yet, this brush is so versatile because when it does hold it, when you keep it, you know, kind of chiseled and sharp, you end up with two little corners that you can use. And those corners, I'm just going to take that corner and just dip it into this tabletop color. Got a little bit, tiny bit of paint just on that corner, and then I can come over here and do some touch up, just using that corner. And I might do the same thing with the red. Just take a little on the corner. So it kind of gives you multiple brushes in one with this. And I'm ready to go into the marshmallows. Are you, Anastasia?
Yeah.
Okay. So marshmallows, I think I did 3 colors. That's how I get a light, a medium, and a dark, and we get some shape that way. So I'm gonna pick up the rest of my white. That'll be the lightest color. Then I'm gonna take a little of that for pile number 2, and that's in that pile I'm going to add just a tiny tap of this yellow ochre. That means that the mushrooms are marshmallows. I'm so visual. I visualize words, and marshmallow and mushroom look alike in my mind. Marshmallow. They sound alike. Mushroom, marshmallow. For the marshmallow color. And then the third color, I'm going to take this leftover white that I had here, maybe a little of this. I'm going to add just a tiny, tiny bit of the burnt umber. And that's going to make the darker. Yeah, so the marshmallows are just kind of reflecting a little bit of the flames from the fireplace. That ended up in a cool gray for me. Yours looks better. I didn't want it that cool. Maybe I had too much blue. There must have gotten some blue in there. There we go. That's better. Okay. All right. I'm going to go in with the white first, and then the first marshmallow is right there. And then you can kind of see the next two a little bit better. I'm just kind of getting that paint on the end of my brush and kind of making a circular oval shape, I guess it is. Tell you what, it's been a long time since I've eaten a marshmallow. Then I'm going to go to that lighter shade that I made, that kind of warm shade. Maybe put it in that white a little bit, maybe along the top of each marshmallow. And then the darker shade in the shadow areas there. Taking advantage of that sharp chiseled end of the brush. Trying not to pick up too much red from the flames or the cup. And then I'm going to once again pick up the burnt umbers just with my tip of my brush. Get these little shadows in there. And I'll tell you at home if you want, you could just turn your canvas a little bit. It's easier to get into it that way. And we're going to add a little bit of brown. Oops. Well, I just did a whole brown end on my mushroom. Marshmallow. Okay, so I think we'll take a break again, and then we'll come back and do the step that I call finishing up, and that's when we're going to put the pattern on, the little white sweater pattern almost, and then we'll take a look and see if there's any little finishing up touches we want to do. All right, we're back. Now this type of thing, putting the white pattern on the red cup while all this paint is wet, always seems just totally daunting to new students. They're like, oh no, we have to wait for it to dry. But if you put it in when it's wet, you get this kind of like faded kind of look where it's very subtle, the pattern. That way it's not overpowering the whole photograph. I think if you waited for it to dry and then very intricately put the pattern on, it wouldn't look as soft and impressionist as this. So I always encourage my students to go ahead and try to learn to do everything wet paint into wet paint. So here we go. Again, I'm going to take that brush, make sure it has that chisel end to it, because we're going to do more, like I said, more of a drawing stroke here. And I'm going to tap that right down into the white paint that I have left here. So I just end up with white paint on the end of my brush. And we'll start by, what about we start with the little dot? Oh, well, I tell you what I'm going to do first. Let's draw that first line. So you can only draw a little bit before I've picked up too much red. I have to wipe off. Pick up some more white, and I can probably finish that little stroke. And you end up with, like I said, much more impressionistic, soft look when you go wet into wet. So now, for the little polka dots up top, I'm going to take just the corner of my brush and dip it into that white, and just tap it down, and you'll get the little polka dot shapes. You're gonna have to wipe that brush off between every time you pick up a new color, because you're going to be picking up a little bit of that red. I want to keep tapping until it comes out kind of pink. Once it's starting to get pink, I know I need to get more paint. And now we're going to go into that fun pattern. So the first thing we're going to do are these V shapes. So I'm going to start, like, maybe this one's one off the page, but we've got a V, like that, a V shape. If you notice that you picked up some red, just keep wiping off that brush between strokes. Anastasia, I'll have to have you come back in the summer and do a summer lesson with me.
Oh, that would be so much fun.
And you'll have to do that forever and ever.
I would love that.
And now I'm going to try to use up the last bit of my white with these. Oh no, I forgot the rest of the pattern. So I do need some more white. Anastasia, would you mind writing me that? Thank you. And I'll just start putting this pattern on. So what I had here is almost like a little, don't know, it's like a little Christmas tree shape. And then it kind of, like a little diamond, I guess is what it is. It's like a little squiggly diamond. It's a good, better way to explain it. Thank you. How are you doing? You need some as well? So I did it kind of like a squiggly upside down diamond. And I've got a little more squiggly on my pattern that I did last night. Got a little more wilder and crazier with that squiggle. And again, like I said, you're going to pick up some red. Just try to stop your brush stroke before it starts getting too pink. Although, like I said, I like how soft the pattern looks with it kind of being a little bit mixture of that red and pink. Don't like this pattern as much as what I did last night, so I'm going to have to fix that somehow. I think I put like a little dot at the end of each one of those. So when Anastasia came here the very first couple times and painted and showed me some of the things she'd been doing, I was amazed at what she could do. She was very, very, very talented. She had a lot of instruction when she was living in the Ukraine. After school, was it after school?
Yeah, after school art program with painting, drawing, and sculpture classes.
Oh, wow. So she came to me pretty well educated and with some natural talent that all goes together very nicely. You know, my students all say, oh gosh, everybody in your studio who paints is so talented. And I say, you know, all of us really have about the same amount of talent. There are a few people who have a better eye or better eye-hand coordination, but most everybody can learn, and it just takes a lot of practice. I'm going to put a little polka dot between each of the diamond shapes. Everything takes practice, so Anastasia was blessed with talent, but she's also worked very hard to get as accomplished as she is. And I feel the same way about myself. I had a natural eye for proportion and shape and color, and which helped me with my interior design business for years. And so it helps to have some natural talent, but believe me, I have a lot of students who come in here who've never had any art instruction. I'm going to put a couple bigger polka dots around here. And maybe they've been accountants or attorneys and they've never had an eye for art. And they will work so hard for years sometimes to develop what people now say is their talent. But it's not always natural for everybody. I've taught probably over 300 people in Louisville, so I've seen it all. And I know that even people who don't have a lot of natural talent are determined to learn, and they become very accomplished artists just by working hard at it. All right, so the finishing up step, that's when I said I was going to look at these little gaps here. I'm going to fill in any of those little gaps just with the corner of your brush. And you can overall, I think I'm pretty happy with my hot chocolate mug. I think it turned out really nice. And remember to compliment yourself if you feel like you did a good job. You should pat yourself on the back. And don't be too hard on yourself. It takes a lot of practice. I've been doing it 45 years, and Anastasia's been doing it 20 years or something. 15 years anyway. So keep at it. And this is just practice. You know, if you have a local craft store and you can pick up another canvas, you can practice it again, go over it, do it again. And just remember, you can paint anything. Paint your own coffee mug or something that you can set up in front of you. And just practice. Get a canvas pad of paper and just practice. So we'll pause the video here and meet you back in the studio here with Anastasia to wrap it up and finishing that last marshmallow there. And I'm going to put a little edge to that cup right there. All right. And we'll see you back here in the studio in a minute. Okay, we're back here in the foyer at the studio, and what'd you think, Anastasia?
I enjoyed painting with you a lot.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was fun, and I like that we tried it and you paint for me.
Yeah, that's true, right. So we didn't realize today that was going to be something new for you. And you liked it. You liked that water-based oil.
I loved it, yeah.
Yeah, I hope you all at home are enjoying that. And if you haven't painted before, maybe you've painted in acrylics, oils are just so much smoother, more smooth than acrylics. And these are pretty smooth for oils. These are really good, these water-based paints. Well, it's time for the big reveal. This is my version today. A little bit different even than last night's version, because every time you do a project, it's going to be a little bit different, because we're just working with our human hands, and we're not machines. So let's see what Anastasia's got there. Her pretty little mug, very nice. That looks great. So if the project comes each month, and sometimes you don't like the idea of a hot chocolate mug, or paint it for somebody else and give it away. It'd be cute sitting on a little easel in a bookshelf somewhere. Pull it out at Christmas time as a decoration. So just keep practicing, and hopefully the projects are very educational for you, and nothing we can say more than practice, 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 right? All right, and we'll see you next month. Take care. Bye. Repeat that again. I didn't even realize I was